What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Black Video News. I'm your host, Dr. Mateen Diop, and I know it's been a minute, but we are glad we're welcoming everybody back. Hope everybody is staying safe. But again, we're here at Black Video News right here in the great city of San Antonio, Texas, where we bring you the hottest news, the hottest events, and the hottest of everything that's going on right here in San Antonio. And today is no different. I have a special guest in the building. He's my brother. He's my friend. I like to call him my big brother. He's almost like a father figure to so many of us right here in the Southwest region in Texas. But he is my brother, the student regional minister of the Nation of Islam under the guidance of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. My brother, your friend, Dr. Abdul Halim Muhammad. How are you, sir?
I'm well. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be unto you, brother.
And thank you for coming, brother. I know that it's been a trying last couple of years, and I know y'all are just kind of getting out. So I want to thank you for blessing this day with your presence here in San Antonio, Texas.
Well, as we say, brother, all praise is due to Allah. As a servant leader, yes, it is my obligation to come out and to serve the people of San Antonio and the Southwest region. So I'm pleased and happy and humbled to be here. Yes, thank you for the invitation.
And thank you. You're always welcome. So don't let this be the last time that you visit San Antonio. So we're bringing the regional minister in here because we just want to talk about a few things as it relates to COVID, as it relates to the Black community. Dr. Abdul Halim has such a vast knowledge of so many things, and we're going to try to put everything down and get it out to you. So if you want to reach out to Dr. Abdul Halim, he's going to give you his Twitter hags and his social media hags at the end of this interview. But you can follow me at Dr. Mateen Diop on Instagram and all the other social media outlets. So before we get into the meat of our interview, brother Dr. Regional, I want to ask you about Minister Farrakhan himself and his health. I know I saw him the July 4th. He did the Criterion. I've seen some other things he's done on YouTube recently. Looks good, but I want to know from you, how's the minister's health?
Well, all praise is due to Allah. I had the blessed occasion to talk to the minister just 2 days ago, and he sent me to Los Angeles to represent himself and the Nation of Islam at the funeral of Dr. Paul Goss. Dr. Paul Goss was a herbologist and an iridologist and homeopathic or a holistic healer, and he is the entrepreneur that created New Body Products. And so Minister Farrakhan's relationship goes back with Dr. Goss even at the beginning of the rebuilding of the Nation of Islam. And so he helped Minister Farrakhan get rid of some kidney stones that he had without invasive surgery using the herbs. And so Minister Farrakhan spoke of their long and loving relationship and how Dr. Goss was for us and with us at the beginning of the rebuilding of the Nation of Islam, and whereby he helped us get through some of the very rough periods. And he's partially responsible for our national growth.
Wow. A lot of these conversations you don't realize take place off camera. So Dr. Abdul Halim and I were talking about various things, and I wanted to ask you about the Million Man March in particular. So and he corrected me on some things that I didn't know. So we're gonna go right into the corrected version right now. So I thought that the announcement for the Million Man March was given in Houston because I was actually there. And for all these years, I've been going, I was there when he made the announcement. But brother Dr. Abdul Halim said, no, that's not what happened. So I want to know when the announcement for the Million Man March was held, and then in particular, how you felt as a young laborer, as a young student minister back then, how you felt when that announcement was made.
Well, again, it all is rooted in Minister Farrakhan's more than a vision-like experience, where he went around first speaking on Stop the Killing. And then that morphed into the men's only meetings. And those men's only meetings was really a result of, in 1993, December 1993, Minister Farrakhan spoke at the Jacob Javits Center, which is his first big major rally that he had in New York since really like 1985. And there he said to the sisters, now, this is something that's very important, because the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is not a misogynist, and we're not a misogynist organization. But he asked the sisters, he said, may I have your permission to have bring the brothers back so we can have a conversation among men only? And the sister said, oh yeah, for sure, in so many words. So he came back to New York at the Armory in early 1994, and it was there he said we should bring 1 million men to Washington, D.C. And he said of himself that when it came out of his mouth, he wanted to put it back in. But since he put it out there, we went to work in order to make his word flesh and his word bond. how I felt as a young laborer. I've known Minister Farrakhan since I was 19 years old. I met him as a sophomore student at Hampton Institute at that time. I went to Hampton Institute. My son went to Hampton University, but I went to Hampton Institute. And I've known the character of the man, the humility of the man, and the vision of the man, and that I believe he's divinely guided. And so if a man tells you 10 things and 9 things come to pass, what am I going to doubt him on the 10th thing?
Yes, sir.
So he said, we're going to Million Man March. And the minister is so humble, brother. He reached out to Reverend Jackson. He reached out to Imam Warithuddin Muhammad. He reached out to all of the civil rights icons because we didn't know anything about marching.
Yes, sir.
Many and most of them turned him down.
Yes,
So
sir.
as a young laborer, I was at the table at the National House, at the Palace, as we began to plan the Million Man March. And we mobilized, and by God's grace and permission, the men responded.
Yes, sir.
And the survey showed that I believe it was somewhere around 80, 95% of the men that were there were Christian.
Wow.
And you had a gathering of nearly 1.8 million black men, not a fight, not an arrest. 16 hours, they were standing there on their feet listening to speakers.
Yes, sir.
And the truth of the matter is that there's been a not so subtle attempt to write the Million Man March out of history.
Yes, sir.
But the truth of the matter is we had more women on stage speaking and presenting at the Million Man March than the March on Washington, the historic March
Yes,
on
sir.
Washington under Dr. King,
Yes, sir.
April 28th, 1963. So when you think about that and the magnitude of it, and the fact there was no crime in Washington, D.C., in fact, crime went down in all the cities.
Yes, sir.
And if you really understand what was shown there, there's 2 things that happened. It was joy for us, but it instilled fear in our enemies, because the number one denial objective of the United States government is that we never be effectively organized.
Wow. Wow. You listen to the Southwest Regional Student Minister of the Nation of Islam under the guidance of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, Dr. Abdul Halim Muhammad, right here on Black Video News. So, Dr. Halim, when we talked about the Million Man March, 1995, and all the subsequent marches we've had since then, in your opinion, how has the community, the Black community as a whole, has it changed since 1995? What is your sense on how the effect of 1995 to 2021?
Well, one of the laws of physics, beloved brother, is that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And so if I tell you that it was joy for us to organize and to be in peace and have a glimpse of heaven on that mall, then know that those who have benefited from our division and our discord, they went to work.
Yes, sir.
And so you can look at, there's been a counter narrative all along. And so when you look at the fact that Black males are like an endangered species, and Black heterosexual males are endangered species. Now, I will state for the record, we do not hate our LGBTQ brothers and sisters.
Yes,
we
sir.
do not hate them.
Yes, sir.
However, we got to stand by the standard that God has given us. And man, it should be the head of his household, but he needs to understand that a nation could rise no higher than this woman,
Yes, sir.
and that a reformed society comes from a reformed woman. Now, woman is a level in another aspect above the man, not because of her love, not because of her beauty, not because of her knowledge, but because she contains a womb. And if a reformed woman, with that womb, she can produce and reproduce greater human beings. So if you think about it, Muhammad, Jesus, Moses, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, all of them come out of the womb of a woman.
Yes, sir.
So the woman must be honored, respected, and protected. That's part of our theology.
Yes,
That's
sir.
what we teach.
Yes, sir.
And that's what we practice. So, but the man has a role. The man is told by God in Genesis that he must reproduce, he must replenish the earth, and then he must subdue it. So by nature, brother, we are to be producers, we're to be protectors, and we're to be providers. But when we are sitting on the sidelines and our woman is going to school, so any of these schools that you go to, look at it, higher education, you'll see we're outnumbered sometimes 12 to 1, 13 to 1,
Yes, sir.
20 to 1.
Yes, sir.
So if these sisters are being educated, they're professional, they're moving up in the economic ladder, then what does she need a man for? And that literally is the narrative being put out. So Black men have always been the target because there can't be two things can't occupy the same space at the same time.
Yes, sir.
So you can't have one alpha male, and I'm not talking about alpha phi alpha or omega psi phi or groove phi groove. I'm not speaking of those, but you can't have one alpha male
Right.
and then have another because they're going to clash. So someone has to be that. So the man has to be the Caucasian or the white man, and that's what at the root of white supremacy is that when he says we the people, he never included us. When he talks about all men are created equal, he wasn't talking about us.
Yes, sir.
And so we've had this constant battle that the black man must not be the head of his household, he must not be the head of his community, and no matter who we are, how we are, no matter what degree of knowledge we have, how much education that we have, unfortunately, brother, we find ourselves being very frustrated.
Yes, sir.
You and I have PhDs, and you know, based upon what I read in your book,
Yes, sir.
and also what has happened in my pursuit of my vocation, my advocation, of course, is freedom, justice, and equality,
Yes,
and
sir.
being a student minister of the Nation of Islam. But my vocation is urban planning.
Right.
And I can tell you, brother, with what they call a terminal degree, you and I have on our head a crown of thorns.
Yes, sir.
Because we have a vision. We know what should be, but society and circumstances keep us from fulfilling that vision. And so many times, brother, the scripture says, you know, without a vision, the people perish.
Yes, sir.
But also there's a preacher in Houston that told me once, he said, Brother Muhammad, he said, a vision without the right people will perish. And I've lifted a statement from one of these great thinkers. It's been said many different ways. A vision without a plan is a hallucination. And we really have been tripping. Our minds have been playing tricks on us for quite a while. And so beloved, when you pull it all together and you look at the condition of black men, I know that in the city of San Antonio, black make up maybe say 8% of the population.
Right. Yes,
But I'm willing, I'm not a gambling man, but I venture to say that we're disproportionately represented in the Black County Jail. I know that there's more of us than 8%
Yes, sir.
made up there.
Yes,
And I know that our Latino, our Hispanic brothers and sisters, our indigenous brothers and sisters are being discriminated against too. Even though they make up a majority, they don't wield the kind of economic and political power that could have, because there can only be one rooster in this hen house called San Antonio in Bexar County.
Yes, sir.
So once we understand that, then we recognize that. Then at that particular point, we realize that we're at war.
Yes, sir.
And business is warfare. And so we can put black faces in high places, brother, but the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan teaches us that politics without economics is symbol without substance.
Wow.
So to the extent we're here on the east side of San Antonio, to the extent that it used to be the hood or the black community, to the extent now that it's being gentrified, to the extent now that, and there's nothing wrong with gentrification except for it causes displacement.
Yes, sir.
We should have black middle class. We should have black upper class living back here again in the east side like they used to when they segregated us.
Yes, sir.
See, desegregation was right, brother. Anywhere that our money and our good character could take us, we should be able to stay or go anywhere we wanted to go. Our sin was integration, meaning that we left, our black professionals left, our black middle class left, and we went to seek these other places because why? When integration took place, white flight took place, so they went out to the suburbs, and we followed them out there to those outlying suburbs because, of course, we want good housing. Of course, we want good schools. But what happened was when we were forced to be together, we had not only the best athletes, we had the best students because we had the best teachers and the best administrators who cared and knew the community. And so when we look at it and we look at our condition right now, after the 1964 Civil Rights Act, after the 1965 Voting Rights Act, after the 1968 Fair Housing Act, where are we right now? So Reverend Barber of the Moral Movement out of North Carolina, he says that we're in the third Reconstruction. So as a student of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, I have to quote, kind of paraphrase what Malcolm quoted when he was quoting actually a ministry letter that was written to the ministry class in the 1930s, whereby it says, of all of our knowledge, history is best qualified to reward our research, right? Yes, and so it is best qualified and most attractive to reward our research. Yes, and so in that, we look at history, then what happened after the first Reconstruction? We had 12 years of progress. We built nearly 60 towns. You understand? We put people in Congress. We had senators. We had governors. We had black everything. We had black sheriffs. We had black everything. And then a deal was cut in the Wormley Hotel, February 26, 1877. And they decided that they would put Rutherford B. Hayes, the Republican, as the 19th president of the United States. They cut a deal. The Congress voted him in. But the deal was that they will withdraw the troops from the South in the military districts in the South. And then what happened was they just gave the people back their property and put them back in charge. And then the strange career of Jim Crow began.
Yes, sir.
All right. Second Reconstruction is a so-called civil rights movement. We did that. But then what was the white lash? After the 1968 Fair Housing Act, and that really was being held up and filibustered in the Senate. But it was the assassination of Dr. King and us burning down of nearly 100 cities across this country. They said, you know something, we better pass something. They did. But then as you look and you go forward, you look at the election of Richard Nixon, you look at the pushback again of conservatism through Ronald Reagan and others, and even Democrats who were centrist Democrats like Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton was a centrist Democrat. He believed in what you call neoliberalism. Neoliberalism is like almost like laissez-faire capitalism. And we looked at and we saw a lot of black people make money, but what about the masses of our people? See, that's the key. The key is if a rising tide lifts all boats, then all boats should be lifted. But what if your boat has a hole in it? When that tide rises, yes, then you find yourself sinking. Yes, and so we've seen this conservative trend. So then we're talking about when the third Reconstruction with the election of Barack Obama, but then again, look at the white lash that took place then in the election of Donald Trump. And trust me, there's 70+ million people who voted for Mr. Trump, and this country is divided. And as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan pointed out, in Savior's Day 2020, we're watching the unraveling of a great nation. But if we're not careful, if we don't unite, if we don't pool our resources, brother, you watch the unraveling of our great nation within this nation.
Wow. You mentioned so much, and I wasn't even going to ask this question, but you brought it up. So I recently read a book called The Color of Law, young man, Richard Broston. Excellent book. We talked about fair housing and all that. And so it was depressing to me because when you talk about fair housing and how black people, black communities were created for black people, you're an urban planner. That's what you do. Do you see any hope as it relates to housing and fair housing, in particular when it comes to black people? You mentioned our money and our character should be able to take us anywhere. Do you actually see that happen?
Well, what's going to happen is this, is that we are in denial. They say the longest river in the world is denial. So black people are in denial. Okay. We somehow live under this integrationist fantasy, this illusion of inclusion. And what we're going to find out now, as we're seeing this rise in what they call white supremacy, is this rise. It's never went anywhere. It was just political correctness prevented us from talking about it openly. But right now it's open. And the number one threat in this country, according to law enforcement, are these white nationalist extremists. They've always been there, but we never talked about it. So for us as black people, what we have to do is understand and go back to a stream of thought that we rejected. Booker T. Washington, pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, right? That was opposed by one of the founders of the NAACP, which was, of course, W.B. Du Bois in his early years, right? But W.B. Du Bois was part of the Niagara movement, and they put forth a manifesto, calling for all kind of equal rights and all that kind of stuff. But none of, like William Monroe Trotter, none of those that were part of that Niagara movement actually joined the NAACP, but W.B. Du Bois. Wow. And those whites and Jews who founded the NAACP, brother, what they did was they restricted us to what is called non-economic liberalism. So we were pushing the talented 10th. We were pushing that we should have equal access to the ballot. We should have equal access to education. But nobody was talking about what Booker T. Washington was talking about. And again, Marcus Mosiah Garvey was talking about, Noble Drew Ali was talking about. See, this train of thought has always been pushed off. So we don't talk about those people during Black History Month. we're always talking about that civil rights strain of those who wanted to have inclusion, to get out of slavery, to get out of second-class citizenship. They're always pushing to be accepted, but they never talk about the most honorable Elijah Muhammad and that train of thought that goes all the way back to that. See, Marcus Garvey came to America looking for Booker T. Washington. He was inspired by Up from Slavery. And that whole mindset is something that we have ignored. At the turn of last century, beloved, we had nearly 15 million acres of agricultural land and nearly 1 million Black farmers. At the turn of this century, we had only 45,000 Black farmers, and we're down to least less than 1 million acres of land. Wow. So a landless people can never be a people who matter in this country, because this country was founded. The Declaration of Independence, July 4th, in 1776, was signed by 56 white male property owners. They owned land, they owned cattle, and they owned people, some of them. In September 17th, 1787, 39 white male property owners signed the Constitution of the United States before it was ratified. And there were those among them who didn't want white, non-property owning males to vote. So it was always about property. And so if we don't have the right mindset, we can't operate by these rules. So as you mentioned, Mr. Rothstein's book, The Color of Law. There's another book out called How to Kill a City. And the same forces that segregated us are the same forces that are gentrifying us. What we don't understand is that the individual investors, the individuals, the investors, and the institutions, the three I's, the individuals, the investors, and the institutions are those people who put us in this. They drew a red line around the Black community, and you could not get a mortgage. You could not get insurance. They used restrictive covenants. And they use deed restrictions to keep us in a certain area. So they used this. So we talked about the color of law. The color of law was public policy. It wasn't just individuals that did it. It was public policy from the federal government on down. And so those same forces now are the same ones that are gentrifying the community. First they come, well, the way to do it, brother, is to follow what from the strain of thought I'm giving you from Booker T. Washington all the way up to the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, the honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan today, is we have to have some of this earth we call our own. We have to own. But how are we going to own if we don't pool our resources, become investors, and begin to buy up our own community? The rappers like Rick Ross have picked up on it. Kanye West, Mr. Farrakhan, he said you can see many of those posts where he says, in fact, Mr. Farrakhan told me to buy land. When you look at our brother out of Mississippi, what's that rapper's name out of Mississippi, y'all? David Banner. He said, Mr. Farrakhan told me, man, get into organic food. You become a billionaire. So we have to get into agribusiness, but also in the urban areas, we have to buy up our community. That's what we have to do. Gentrification is displacement, neighborhood change that causes displacement. So we've got to have housing at all price points. We've got to have all of our classes here. We have to have a place for the classes and the masses in our community. Our community is not a community, brother. It really is a colony. And what we have is that people come and set up shop. My concern is, and as a Muslim, I would welcome our brothers and sisters, our African brothers and sisters who are leaving an untenable situation they feel in Afghanistan. But when they come here, where are they going to put them to set up shop? These people are going to be entrepreneurs. They're going to be where are they going to come to set up shop? The same place they came, they put the Vietnamese. The same place they put the Koreans that came here. The same place that they put the Arabs displaced in the Palestinian-Israeli war. The same place they put the Indians. The same place they put the Pakistanis in our community. So our community is a colony. It's a place where you extract the wealth, and then who is going to have, Mr. Park's grocery store on the back of their Little League jersey? Come on. Where is that? So we're going to have to wake up and learn that the $1.5 trillion that we have really is not, we're not producers, we're consumers.
Wow.
So to the extent that we're always consuming is the extent that will always be played by the forces in this country. So they're the ones that dress our women. I see people wearing these big old platform shoes nowadays. Man, that went out in the 70s, man. That was Flag Brothers. That was eleganza, man. You know what I'm saying? That was Superfly, men wearing purses and all that kind of stuff. Man, that stuff went out, I thought, in the 70s, man, with Superfly and the Mac and all of that, man. But it's coming back. That stuff is coming back and have us dressed in all kind of wild ways and whatnot. And we're paying thousands of dollars for Gucci and Pucci and Fendi and all these kind of things. When I've traveled to China and I've gone to the city of Guangzhou and I've seen the manufacturing district or the distribution district of China, man, it's as big as literally as East San Antonio. You could take all of East San Antonio and it would be a district that's full of, listen to me when I tell you, material, fabric and material, zippers. I can take you to a store, maybe the size of, say, a Foley's or Macy's in your mall, in a local mall. And that whole store was buttons, zippers, or I mean, a whole store, man, floor by floor of these things. It blew my mind. So the point of the matter is that a country that doesn't manufacture anything is not really a country at all. America doesn't manufacture anything anymore. And so we got to get back to manufacturing. Minister Farrakhan teaches us we have to make our clothes. We have to grow our food. The reason when we talk about COVID-19 and we talk about morbidity, they can talk about how many people are dying, but nobody wants to drill down into the statistics. You know, and I know when we did our PhD and our methodology,
Yes, sir.
you know, there was a saying in my statistics class that there's lies, damn lies, and then there's statistics, right? Because you can manipulate them any way you want to. So you're going to tell me all these people that's being hospitalized, all the people that are dying, but you won't drill down into those statistics and tell me how many of those had pre-existing conditions. And our concern is among the Black and the Hispanic and the Native American communities is our inability to access preventative medicine or quality health care ahead of time. So we suffer from diabetes, we suffer from high blood pressure, we suffer from renal failure, kidneys, because that COVID-19 will attack you. We suffer from asthma because we suffer from what is called economic, environmental racism. We're next to a concrete crushing plant. We're next to some kind of refinery. Always something that's affecting our health. And then we have, you can look at, there's a church, then there's a liquor store, then there's a crack house, then there's a whore house, then there's a gambling house, then there's a liquor store, you know. And so when you look at our consumption of cigarettes, alcohol, bad food, you know, the model of the fast food franchise is that Burger King says, I'm gonna put my Burger King next to McDonald's.
Yes, sir.
And McDonald's is their real estate plan. They're really in real estate, is to put a McDonald's between every McDonald's. So you're gonna find usually a Burger King and a McDonald's. And then in Houston, what I found is that across the street from every CVS is a Walgreens. So you got fast food that's killing us fast. And then what do? I'm gonna prescribe some drugs or some kind of surgery for you. And so we've got a medical industrial complex. Do you know that the pharmaceuticals were about to get out of the vaccine business until COVID-19? Now they're making billions of dollars. You don't think that the vaccine may be free for you, for our community, but the government is paying them. So billions of our dollars, and these people's portfolios, these executives, they're just joyful. So now what's happening is, brother, is that the whole world is frowning at America. It's frowning because now you're talking about giving people a third shot, and there's people out there that haven't had a first shot. That may be their blessing, because we don't know about this particular experimental gene therapy. It's not a vaccine. Vaccine is where you take the organism and you inject it in the person so that the body reacts to that organism. But not this. This is something synthetic, and it's something to do with gene therapy. And so I would be very, I would be remiss if I didn't warn the people what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan wanted. Do not take their vaccine. That's what he said. And look at it. He said to us, and again, I go back to, if a man tells you 10 things and 9 of them come true, why am I going to doubt the 10th thing?
Yes,
he told us that Florida would become, in one sense, one of the epicenters of the virus. It has.
Yes,
he told us that that this virus would mutate. It has.
Yes,
and he told us that that this pestilence is not from Wuhan, China. It's not from Fort Detrick, Maryland. That this is a pestilence from heaven. Look at the Holy Quran 2 and 59. And you look in, you can go into 2 Chronicles 7 and 13 and the book of Numbers. It tells you that God sends a pestilence to the people. And then what follows is what you find in 7 and 14. If my people, who are called by my name, will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven. He will forgive their sins and heal the land. See, God is trying to humble America. Science, listen to the science. I'm the scientist. But this thing changes every time. First, get the shot. And we were told that if we get the vaccine, that we would not catch COVID and we would not be able to spread it. Now it's, well, you know something? I had both my shots. Now I've got COVID and I'm passing it on to people. But because I took it, I'm not being hospitalized or my symptoms are less. That's the benefit of it now. Now it's the Delta. That'll be the Lambda. And you being, an Omega, you would know all the Greek letters. I don't know all the Greek letters. But by the time they get down to the X, whatever the XYZ is in Greek, will they be able to resolve this? No. So what we have to do, brother, is we're taught by the most honorable Elijah Muhammad how to eat to live. We really have to control the logistical food supply chain from the field to the meal. This processed food is killing us. Our lack of access to preventive medicine is killing us. So we're going to have to build up our immune system. So what I did in studying Dr. Goss, for instance, he had a product called CKLS, which stood for colon, kidney, liver, and spleen. And when you study the colon, liver, kidney, liver, and spleen, and look how they work together to eliminate waste and to produce that which is necessary to build up your immune system. So we have to build up our immune system. So vitamin D3, zinc, vitamin C, all of these things we need to take to build up our immune system, and that can come from food. Yes, and I must recommend to all the people the white Navy bean. Now, don't put no ham hock in it. No, don't do that. The white Navy bean.
You're talking about the bean pie, bro?
The bean pie, that's like a dessert. My people have a sweet tooth, but I'm saying to the people of San Antonio, and those who are watching this, the white Navy bean, go study it and look at all of the benefits that's in the white Navy bean in terms of your circulation, in terms of your heart, in terms of your ability. You'll never be constipated if you eat white Navy beans and cook them right and make sure that you don't have a lot of gas from them. So the whole point that I'm making, brother, is that people are going to have to look at those two great books written by Honorable Elijah Muhammad. On the cover of it says from God in person, Master Fard Muhammad. So if God gives you something, you at least need to give it a look-see, because I'm telling you, pills and medicine and the commercialized medicine, see, is not the solution. We have to go back to what we came from, which are natural, homeopathic, holistic ways of preventing illness in the first place.
Yes, sir. You're right here on Black Video News. I'm your host, Dr. Mateen Diop, with Student Minister Dr. Abdul Halim Muhammad, the Southwest Regional Student Minister of the Nation of Islam, based out of Houston, Texas, and he has a few other states that are under his charge. He's here talking to us today about a bunch of things. I hope you got your pens. I hope you're taking notes, because he's just been putting it down. And he's going to be in San Antonio here this weekend. He's going to be speaking in a few hours at the Carver Library on East Commerce Street. He'll be speaking on Sunday at Eastwood Church on Commerce on Martin Luther King Street. So if you get a chance, come on out. He's going to share his contact information when we're done with this interview. And I do have one more question before I let you go. I know you talked about COVID, but they always said that when America gets a cold, Black America gets the flu. So now we're talking about something like COVID. Do you see an end to this thing? And how do you see Black people coming out of this whole pestilence of COVID?
Again, I go back to 2 Chronicles 7:14. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face, right? Mm-hmm. And he says, and turn from their wicked ways, right? So what's important for us and for America to do is to repent. Mm-hmm. See, the only nation, the only city that was ever saved in the Bible or Holy Quran was Nineveh. Mm. Jonah went to Nineveh, and when the king of Nineveh heard Jonah's preaching, he took off his royal robes, meaning he took off his trappings of power and authority, and he put on sackcloth, which is to humble himself, and put his face in the dust, sackcloth and ashes. And Nineveh is the only city to be saved. Well, how can we preach the Bible? How can we preach the Quran and not understand that not only is those books talking about what was in the past, but it's also prophetic? I challenge any rabbi, any imam, any preacher, any minister to tell me where the United States of America is in the Bible, Holy Quran by name. It's not by name, yes, sir. But there are many great nations and sister nations that are in the dustbin of history, that if you look at them as an example, you will understand where America is hidden. Where America is heading, excuse me. Mm-hmm. There is no greater in the last 6,000 years nation on this earth than America. Mm-hmm. She's the greatest political, economic, social, cultural power, military power on this earth. And right now that power is waning. Mm-hmm. In the whole world, the darker people of the world are waking up. And when you see what is rising and they see it on the horizon, in fact, they are so frightened now based upon the 2020 census. They see that people of color are becoming the majority. Yes. They're seeing the browning of America. So they're doing everything they can to suppress our vote, to cut us off economically, isn't it interesting that at the beginning of this whole COVID-19 situation, that the Black community, Native Americans and Hispanics were on the back of the line when it came to the vaccine. And now they seem to be in a rush to give it all to us. I wouldn't trust them. I don't know what they're giving us. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't trust it. And even though they put my sister out front, says she's the one that came up with the vaccine and all that kind of stuff. Let me say this. What she had in the laboratory is no guarantee that was in those vials that they're passing out. Yes, sir. Now, this isn't conspiracy theory. Mm-hmm. This isn't we got to go beyond the Tuskegee experiments, as Dr. Wesley Muhammad points out. They have had a history of experimenting on us since our feet hit the shores of North America. And the advancement they've made in medicine has been by our pain and our suffering. Yes, sir. So yes, sir. I say we need to hit the reset button. COVID-19 has helped us, Dr. Martin, to hit the reset button. Educationally, we need to look at how our children be educated. Look what they're talking about. They talk about no critical race theory in our schools.
Well, ask you about that.
Okay. You know what? Sometimes we spend too much time talking about what white folk did to us. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, I think about critical race theory. If you're going to tell me what we suffered in slavery, Jim Crow and all that, man, I'm going to need a therapist sitting next to me after I hear that. Yes, sir. Yes, I don't want my children exposed to that. But what I want to talk about is, what were we before you captured us? Mm-hmm. What were we before you enslaved us? We didn't come here enslaved. We were enslaved. Mm-hmm. Who built the pyramids? Mm-hmm. Who taught Hippocrates medicine? Mm-hmm. Who taught Pythagoras the Pythagorean theorem? There's no living example of it but the pyramids in Egypt. And no, that Bedouin Arabs did not build the pyramids in Egypt. In fact, they took the limestone off of the pyramids that you could literally see across the Mediterranean when the sun hit them a certain kind of way. Wow. Look, brother, we are the mothers and fathers of civilization. You can trace everybody's DNA back to the Black man and the Black woman. Black woman in particular, the first human being. We're the first ones to teach law. We're the first ones to understand astronomy. We're the first ones to bring science and mathematics to the world. Let's talk about that. And so, as the scripture says, it was in the beginning, so it shall be in the end. Yes, when when Pizarro and Cortez and all them got here, they found civilization here. Everywhere that you go on the planet, you found the Aboriginal people were already there.
Yes, sir.
You know, it's almost like graffiti on the wall. We said the black man was here, but now he's gone, but he left his name to carry on. So everywhere they went, they seen evidence of
Yes,
us,
sir.
buried under the jungles, under the sea, in the deserts. They've seen us. So I don't need to teach critical race theory about what the white man did to me, and see too much talk about what they did to us, and they delude themselves by what we did for you. See, we took you out of the jungles of Africa. We saved you. We gave you our God. Jesus wasn't white. So you gave us white supremacy in all its forms. We reject that. We reject it. And what we're saying is that what we want to teach our children is the science of astronomy, mathematics, all the sciences, engineering, all of those things. And we'll teach our children their noble and great history before these people escaped from the caves and hillsides of Europe and spread that madness all over the planet. We're going back to that. And brother, we can produce a human being that's a reflection of God. That is the purpose of knowledge. So hopefully at the Carver Museum, we'll have a more spiritual message at the church on Sunday. But at the Carver Museum, we want to talk about education, organization, and gentrification. So those things, I might have been a rhyme kind of thing, but we want to talk about those things and try to give us a blueprint of things that we can do and should do here. It's not for me to come in here and parachute in here like Captain Save a Negro. That's not what I do. But as a servant of the people, I'm obligated to tell you what I know. And then at that point, let it take root in the soil of San Antonio so that black and brown can work together to make a better San Antonio for all.
How can we get in touch with you? If somebody wants to help you, I know you're doing big things in Houston and your city. How can we get in touch with you? How can we help?
Well, they can follow me on Twitter. I'm Dots Connector.
That's right. You're Dots Connector.
I'm the Dots Connector.
Dots Connector. You heard him.
Dots Connector. And on Facebook, it's Dots Connector. Though I have so many friends, but you can follow me on Facebook. I'm on IG. A Halim, Haleem Muhammad on Instagram, and they can follow me on Instagram. And Muhammad Mas number 45. You can look at our website and get on our website and get on our email address. Go to noyhouston.org. noyhouston.org.
You heard it from Dr. Abdul Halim Muhammad. He's a student regional minister of the Southwest region under the guidance in the Nation of Islam, under the guidance of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. He's been our guest on here on Black Video News. I hope you've enjoyed him as much as I have. Remember, he's going to be speaking at the Carver Library in just a couple of hours, 3 p.m. Central Standard Time here in San Antonio. He'll be speaking tomorrow at around 11 a.m. church time at Eastwood Community Church right here in the city of San Antonio. I want to thank you, Dr. Abdul, for coming by.
Thank you.
And we hope to see you again soon.
Inshallah, being the will of Allah. And thank you again for the honor and privilege of being here on your show.
Black Video News, I'm your host, Dr. Teen D out. Peace.